two, one. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sista Docs Exhale. This is one of 6 episodes in this series brought to you by the sisters here. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lyrical Tay, and my specialty is faculty diversity and diversity in higher education.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cupid, and my specialty is sister circles and mentorship for Black women in higher education.
And I am Tahira Madi, also known as Dr. 99, and I specialize in community psychology. We are members of a sister circle that was formed while we were earning our PhDs, and we went through a lot as Black women doing their professional and educational journeys. So in these episodes, we'll talk about our experiences, we'll relate our research to everyday life, and we'll cover a range of topics. And we will exhale. Sisters, exhale. Today's topic is mentoring and sister circles. Our own Dr. Cupid studies this topic. Dr. Cupid, what does research say about Black women's experiences with mentoring?
Overall, the research states that Black women, in comparison to their counterparts, and particularly the white students, they receive less mentorship. They're less likely to have a mentor who shares similar research interests, and they find it more difficult to locate mentors who look like them. So in particular, Black women professors, and that's due to the mentoring gap. And when I say the mentoring gap, that refers to the lack of needed Black faculty women to mentor all Black women graduate students.
Okay. And how does that relate to what we talked about in episode 1, where Black women use sister circles to remove that academic mask?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dr. 99. So when we think about the mask, and according to Dr. Shavers and Dr. Moore, they particularly looked at the academic mask that Black graduate women put on themselves. And the reasons why they placed that academic mask upon themselves was for protection against potentially negative experiences that could occur. The research state that Black women tend to feel isolated, marginalized, and experience feelings of tokenism. So the representation that this Black woman has to represent all of the entire Black population because they're the only Black women within that class, right? So fortunately for sister circles, which I define as a community for and by Black women with the overall goal of advancement within a particular context, this context being higher education. So when we look at the academic mask in sister circles, it helps Black women to shed that mask, to not have to wear that mask. It allows them to have a space in which they can be authentic. So when we think about the academic mask, Black women realize that they may wear it or they do wear it. However, this space allows them the space to be vulnerable.
Tell us how you came to do this research.
I came to do that research because my graduate experience was the first time I had mentors who looked like me. So my dissertation committee, I considered them to be a sister circle dissertation committee. So I have to definitely shout out Drs. Kimberly Moffitt, Lauren Henderson, Michelle Scott, Keisha Allen, and Bernie Wallace, because they understood the experiences of Black women and the need for Black women to have a sister circle. As Dr. Moffitt always says, representation matters. So that being said, my graduate experience allowed me to see firsthand why representation matters, because it was the second time that I had a Black woman professor, right? So throughout my entire education career in regards to higher education, I only had one Black woman professor in undergrad. So now as a doctoral student, now I was like, oh, wow, like Black women faculty, they do exist, right? So it was great to be in that space. And also on the student end, I was able to form my own sister circles with Black women. So I refer to y'all two, Sista Docs Exhale, as my original sister circles because y'all pulled me in, right? Y'all were able to see like, okay, this is a younger sister scholar. Let me pull her in. Let me show her the hidden curriculum. Let me help guide her along. Let me give her advice that I wish I had. So having it both fall on two ends really allowed me to see the necessity of looking at it from the student and the faculty end. So my dissertation included both Black faculty women and Black doctoral women.
Awesome. Dr. Tay, how have sister circles worked for you? What's your experience with sister circles?
My experience with sister circles have been ones that I've created for myself, and I didn't at first call them sister circles. It was more of looking for support with Black women who were experiencing or going through similar things that I had. And I think in terms of my experience with it, I think largely it started at my doctoral level to be more intense. And I think it's because of the experience of getting a PhD really requires that added support. Now, I've had mentorship from Black women previously, especially since undergrad. So I've been blessed with that and still have one Black mentor who is still very active. I've called her an auntie because she's been so supportive throughout my educational journey.
Okay. Yeah, I had the same thing where I didn't know to call the sister circle a sister circle until I met you all. And I think you both helped me to put words to what I really needed. I think it took until my second year in the PhD program to find other Black students who came in, and one Black student in particular who had gone to HBCUs, so kind of came into a predominantly white institution and knew that she needed to get with other students of color in order to find the support that she needed. So it wasn't just Black women, but there were several Black men in our group who, that was more like a support group, people that hang out together, and that really helped me along in ways that I didn't know. But then getting with a sister circle did even more for me. So, what did you find in your research, Dr. Cupid?
So, in regards to my research, which was a qualitative study, I did one-on-one semi-structured interviews with 32 participants. I found that overall, Black women do practice the motto "Lifting as we climb." So, when we think about that motto, it's Black women recognizing that attaining a PhD or mentorship is a communal process. So, what that means, for example, is so how you two pulled me in, older woman and older cohort would therefore pull in new members because they recognize like, okay, well, this is a new sister scholar. I should pull her in because we already have this space. So that's how Lifting as We Climb operated within my study. And secondly, when we look at mentorship, Black women faculty demonstrated a need-based approach. So that is Black faculty understanding both the professional and the personal lives of their students, and then using that knowledge to therefore mentor their students based upon their needs. So whether or not that was helping them prepare for conferences, teaching courses, making them employable once they graduate, but also balancing the expectation of what it means to be a Black woman within academia. Last week, we did talk about like the strong Black woman myth that we often carry and how that could be damaging to our mental health. So helping Black women to realize that these are expectations that we may not be aware of that we need to confront and challenge. But in regards to mentorship, Black doctoral women also recognized that they had empathy towards Black faculty women because they understood the constraints put on Black women, how Black faculty women often mentored more. They had to mentor more personally due to the gender tax, mentor more students of color due to the Black tax. So they understood the pressures placed upon Black faculty women. So unfortunately, that resulted in some of them not going out to their mentors as much as they would, or feeling as though they always have to be prepared. So such as like that perfectionism that we also discussed. So therefore, unfortunately, the ways in which academia is set up, really hegemonic, really white patriarchy kind of disallowed the solidifying of that relationship as deeply as some participants wanted. How would you say, in regards to that, you relate to your Black women faculty mentors? Like, is there a difference in the ways in which you approach them, or do you think it's the same for all of your mentors?
That's a good question. I think it depends because, as the quote goes, all skin folk ain't kin folk. So it definitely depends on how that particular Black woman relates with me as well. So, and I've had mentors who were not Black, mostly women. Most of my mentors, academically and professionally, have been Black women in terms of a close knit, like real sister circle mentorship type. It's been women in general, but I would say there have been some Black women that have crossed the I'm just your professional mentor, I'm just your academic mentor, to I'm about to talk to you about that life. this is what I've experienced. This is what you may go through, but I'm also interested in your holistic well-being, and that, and being able to share the Black woman journey as they've gotten their doctorate degrees, because I'm the first in my family to get a doctoral degree. So I've not had someone to look up to and say, how do you do this? So having a Black woman who's experienced this, be it in different generations, but to go, how did you do this? What did you tackle? And is this hazing? I remember I asked that one time. I'm telling you, my first year in, I was like, wait, is this what hazing feels like? But no, it was just learning to read and critique at a different level. And I was told it was totally normal, but oh my goodness. But it was very reassuring to have Black women, to go to and be like, look, this is what this feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't think I noticed somebody had to point out to me that I had mostly male mentors, and they were from different ethnicities, and one of my mentors is Filipino, a couple of Jewish mentors, and all men. And I had Black women that I looked up to, but they weren't necessarily mentoring me like that. But I didn't even realize how important that was, though, until remember we had that incident where we were eating lunch together and we saw Dr. Sanders and we all got so excited. It was like, "Hi, Dr. Sanders." And I just thought that I was like, "Oh, that's what that means. Her presence is kind of like mentorship for me." It was something about her just being there that meant something. But I'm not even sure. I think the other mentors I had may be more in family or something like that. I'm not sure, but I think the majority of my mentors aren't Black women, but the sister circles definitely. And I think I got more out of that experience in order to help me with my journey, the sister circle, more than I did with mentoring.
Now, when you talk about mentors in family, now I did not necessarily lack for that, because the Black women in my family definitely stepped up, stepped in. And even though they hadn't done this journey themselves, I had hella support from the Black women in my family. Like, you're going to do this, it's going to be great, and you're going to figure it out. So like in terms of mentorship in family, the Black women in my family have always been like, I'm going to ride hard for you. And they have, so.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Cupid, you had something else. I'm not sure if it came up in your research or we talked about it, but something about check-ins and off-campus gatherings. How does that relate to this topic?
This relates to this topic because my participants stated that the check-ins and off-campus gatherings were key in order to sustain their sister circles. So when we think about being a Black body on a predominantly white space, we're often checked as if we belong, right? So I don't know if you've ever experienced this. You can be in the company of your Black peers, and then some random faculty person asks you, do you know where you're going? Are you lost? Do you need help? Right? And that doesn't happen to our other peers. So that reminder that you're a Black body in this predominantly white space. So that's why check-ins and off-campus gatherings were key for students, because it reminded them that they are more than students in particular. Some students say, like, for example, I'm a mom, and having the space to be with other Black women who are mom is really helpful, because it also helps me to realize what does it mean to be a Black woman and a mother attaining a PhD, right? So that was key for them to be able to pour into their other roles in their personal lives. And also Black faculty women also spoke about surveillance. So they recognized that a group of Black faculty women were surveilled on campus. So if it's a couple of them in a room, then their colleagues are slowing down. They're coming into the room asking questions that are irrelevant or unimportant. So they recognize the need to meet off campus so they can have that level of privacy and intimacy that PWIs don't allow for Black faculty women. And overall, check-ins are important because it allowed them to feel connected when they weren't physically together. And that also ties into the importance of technology. So some sister circles only existed because of the digital space. So some only met via Skype, for example, to have their writing sessions, because faculty members, they were at different universities, but they recognized the importance of having that community. And also for Black doctoral students, they engaged in social media via Twitter and Facebook. So for example, using the hashtag #CiteABlackWoman, had a sister, they were able to gain references, ask questions, see how other people were navigating the doctoral space. And also the private Facebook group also allowed them to, again, ask questions, build community, and also even potentially meet some of these sisters in person at conferences. So that's how also they were able to expand their scholarship and say, hey, I'm working on this. Is anyone interested in this? Can someone, for example, meet me at this conference? Can we share a room? So also like what are the financial contributions that Sister Circles allow for these Black women? So that also came through in regards to looking at technology.
Okay. Dr. Lyrical Tay, how has technology had played a role in your sister circle experiences and your mentoring experiences?
In terms of sister circles, technology has played a role, especially with texting, accountability partners, even if you're not in the same space, but like, look, we're going to focus for 4 hours and check in. Also, using Google Docs to create our goals for the week and then say, here are our goals. This is what we're going to do, see how we get it. And then Google Meet, being able to meet and just share space about the journey online has been a great support. And also being able to, I know this sounds real technical, but to edit documents together and have that in the space, that's important too. But then also seeing, as Dr. Cooper said, on Twitter, on Facebook, those groups as well, having additional resources and support systems have been awesome. And then having folks who've already finished and then being able to reach out to them via email, via text, and be like, this feels like hell, chapter 4 won't end. And having them be able to reach back and be like, yeah, it feels like that, but you're going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Dr. 99?
Yeah, when you brought up, I forgot how much I leaned on Twitter and hashtags and how many different Black women I started following because somebody retweeted something. And, when I think you were the one who told me about several people's blogs that I got to read. And it was only like maybe 2 or 3, or just saw groups of people who came together and were writing about this, just the experience of being Black and having getting a PhD, that it just meant a whole lot. It has meant a lot. And then the text relationship that I have with my sister circle means a whole lot. And I didn't realize how how much it played a role until I'm like, dang, okay, yeah, I guess it's like become such a part of life and it's so natural. And I don't want to say I take it for granted, but it is like, that's my life now. So yeah, technology. So the question was also raised as to whether universities should fund formalized sister circles on campuses. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. In my recommendations, I did offer that universities should formalize sister circles, because when we look at the load that Black faculty women do carry, they do carry often carry a heavier load when we think about mentorship. And mentorship is not generally included in tenure and promotion, right? So if universities really want to respect and honor Black faculty women's work, then you're going to put your money where your mouth is. So therefore, you're going to compensate these Black faculty women. And compensation can, of course, come in different forms, right? So whether or not that's less teaching load, whether or not that's less service load, because mentorship takes on a lot. Is a recognition that Black faculty women are already doing this work, so why not be rewarded? I do understand that some of our Black faculty women mentors have the mindset of, this is how it is, this is what we should do, so therefore we do it because it has to be done. But I think there is that new conversation of, no, it should also be recognized, right? So if the other things on your CV is being recognized, then mentorship too, as well, should be recognized in this process. And some scholars, for example, Drs. Yvette Allen and Drs. Nicole M. Johnson, did a study in looking at a formalized sister circle on a campus. And they did find that overall it led to social advantages because Black doctoral women were able to engage in each other, were able to learn about the hidden curriculum, for example. Black faculty women and Black staff women were able to see like, oh, like there are other Black women on campus. I can work with these women, because oftentimes we do feel really dispersed on campus because we are dispersed on campus, right? So it's that physical coming together was influential to them, to seeing like, okay, well, we could do this work on campus. Like it makes it more manageable and realistic when you begin to see people who look like you also doing the work. And
Mhm.
Dr. Courtney Allen's dissertation also found similar findings when the universities formalized it, is saying like, okay, well, we're going to have a budget for this because we're taking this seriously, right? So what does it mean to not only recruit Black women in different spaces, but also to retain them and help them to thrive within these spaces, right? So I think we need to push against that narrative that we should just be surviving in these spaces. And what does it mean to thrive in these spaces? So of course, that is the confrontation of white supremacy and how that exists within these spaces. So if we
Mhm.
really want to be quote unquote diverse and inclusive campuses, then we have to look at the structures that are not diverse and inclusive, but only on paper or in these photos that look really cute and colorful and across the spectrum, but necessarily not the reality.
Right.
The my only slight pushback for the having it formalized and funded is that oftentimes when things are formalized and funded and recognized, there is a very open policy, meaning anyone, even if they are not Black and female, can come and be a part of it because the university is funding it. And sometimes you need Black spaces where you can exhale without having to think about coddling someone else's feelings. So for me, having it to be something that can be exclusive when needed, that can be private, sacred spaces is important as well. Because sometimes when I'm exhaling, I don't want to have to worry about coddling somebody's feelings because they're going to be hurt because I'm sharing this journey.
Mhm.
And that's the only thing I think about because I know I've been in places where we've had like a Black faculty and staff association, but people who are not can also join. And I've been in a space where a Black woman said, talk about multiculturalism is great, but right now I really want to talk about Black people and the Black experience on this campus. And so as not to get unfocused on specific Black initiatives or the experience of being Black on campus, having closed spaces where we can exhale are much important. And if formalization and funding comes with being open all the time, I just think about the kind of like a cost benefit analysis of that when we're looking for spaces to exhale, is all.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Both of the articles or the research studies that I looked at did not address that, like if non-Black women were allowed in those spaces. But I would too again say that if other communities can have these only spaces on campus, then what does it mean that this Black space has to be open, right? So is that again another articulation of anti-Blackness, right? If you're saying that this is a Black only space, but everybody has to be allowed in, but that's not the universal policy, then what are you really saying? Would be my question to these university practitioners or policymakers.
Well, speaking of formalizing spaces like this, have you had differences in experiences where you were assigned a mentor versus whether you formed a natural relationship with a mentor?
I've been assigned advisors whom didn't necessarily take up the mentoring role. I've had advisors who were very much, check the box in terms of where you need to be, what classes you need to take, that sort of thing, but not really beyond formalities of hi, how you doing, that sort of thing. And versus a mentor who is really trying to walk the walk. I can recall throughout my program that women were like, not only telling me that I need to publish, but being willing to put their name down beside mine in the process of publishing, being willing to write with me, being willing to share with me concepts of motherhood and what it means, and then respectability politics, like being able to model the way differently than just checking the box that, yeah, you took this class, but also, as a Black woman, I've experienced X. I want you to think about this. If you go here, think about that, because they can then say, based upon my experience being a Black woman here, these are some things that you can think about or should think about versus a non-Black mentor that I've had who's just, like I said, check the box, cannot necessarily share, not necessarily can't share that same experience because they can't tell me about being a Black woman in that space.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I've belonged to several programs that had a mentoring component to it. And even though it's almost like research has proven that it's important. So I was a Meyerhoff graduate fellow at UMBC, but I still didn't have, there were faculty people who said that they were available as mentors, but the best mentor for me was the assistant director of the program, Justine Johnson, who was a Black woman. And that was a person that I could have just different candid conversations with. And she was, for me, a program component in herself. So where it's different, it wasn't like she was getting a PhD or she wasn't a faculty member or she wasn't a member of a sister circle, but she was still somebody there who was a solid mentor for me. And she wasn't assigned, it was almost like that was her job. So that's kind of like a formalized thing. But at the same time, they assign you student mentors in different programs. So I was assigned one for that program, assigned one for the psychology program, but none of those relationships really panned out for me. It's like, I meet the mentor, that this is the person who's supposed to mentor you, but nothing like that happened for me. And I didn't even start to think about it until the year after, when Dr. Erica Boyd, and we're going to talk to her on our next show, when she came in and she actually asked for what she called a hierarchical mentoring setup, where she's saying, you're ahead of me, can you mentor me? And then whoever comes in after me, I get to mentor them. So that made sense to me and made me think about how I show up for other Black women. So, but yeah, the assigned mentor thing just never worked out for me.
So it's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you said hierarchical, because I was thinking of the quote Dr. Cupid said, lifting as we climb, because here you are, here she comes, and then we're going to kind of reach back, that sort of thing. So, but I also want to say that I've also had non-Black women mentors who have gone hard in the paint for me as well. And I just want to recognize that. And I've also, in terms of this particular program, had times where one of my favorite mentors, who I don't even know if she would think of herself as that, but also someone I look up to, was like connecting me to different people. And they were Black women and women of color, because she recognized, given what I was studying, that I needed to talk to Black women and women of color. So I appreciate that as well, where white women are like, you know what? I'm an ally, I'm in this, but let me connect you with people who, really are in this and look like you too. Not really, but I said really are in this, because she's in it as well. And I'm just going to call out Dr. B from UMBC, talking about you, but also connecting you to other women of color who are in this work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my one of my Black male mentors, maybe my only one in the academic world, Dr. Sean Bediako, he spent, when I was an undergrad, he would say, well, let me hook you up through email to, and he was different Black women, where he knew that was a need too, that I needed Black women mentors, but I didn't really get it at the time. I was like, okay, and we would connect, but it wouldn't be a lasting, it didn't take. And I think it was because it wasn't organic. But and that's fine. And I still apparently found what I needed. So yeah. So have you all had mentoring relationships where somebody was trying to mentor you in a certain direction that you did not want to go?
I say yes, because I think of the mentor that I've had, Dr. Adrian Israel, since I was 18. I basically, once I found her, I was like, you ain't going nowhere. And it was on a PWI. But she gave me very specific directions. You need to major in a specific area of study so that you can get the academic jobs. And the idea of interdisciplinary to her was like, nope, specific. So I didn't quite get my PhD in history, which would have, or even African American lit, which would have aligned me with my undergrad and master's level careers. But she gave me that advice, which actually I think is very sound, because it's very sound advice to say, major in this way so that you can be known for this and this specific area to make the job search easier so people can identify you.
Mm.
Because when you're interdisciplinary, for some people who don't yet get that, it's hard to say, okay, this is who you are, this is where you are, this is where you fit. Where sometimes you fit in a variety of places.
Yeah, I don't understand why people don't get that. That burns my biscuits. I don't get that.
That burns your biscuit.
Yeah, well, so my experience, well, I guess I want to hear from Dr. Cupid though, since she studies this. Have you had any mentoring experiences where they were trying to lead you down a path that you didn't want to go to?
I would say no, fortunately, but I would say when we think about being graduate students, it's the perceptions that we do want to be a faculty member. So it's not necessarily that they were trying to lead me down to become a professor, but they had that assumption because I'm getting a PhD, which is fair. So I would say that when you do have these mentoring relationships, to be clear of what your goals are and your expectations within these mentorships. So therefore, it's a level of clarity. So I would say later on in my career, when I was like, okay, I definitely do not want to become a faculty member, or at least not a full-time faculty member. I'm saying that clearly to Dr. Moffitt. She was able to connect me with other women who are, administrators, right? Because if I want to be a high-level administrator, I should already be having these conversations with women in these spaces. So just being clear of what your intentions are for yourself, I think helps to solidify the relationship better.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say too that when we do think about mentorship, it's important, which y'all already referenced, to have multiple mentors because no one can serve all of your needs. So it's important to one, not even put that burden on someone to, meet all those expectations because realistically, we can't meet all those expectations. And it's also important to have mentors that both look like us and who do not look like us. Because when we do think about allyship, as Dr. Lerical stated, we want people who are already in this work, right? We don't to have to quote unquote test them to see if they're actually within this work. So, for example, like you said, Dr. Bickle, she's in this work and she recognizes that we are Black women and we show up fully as Black women. So, therefore, we should be connecting with other Black women and also with allies. So, I definitely also have to shout out Dr. Bickle in recognizing our Black womanhood, but also our humanity. So, I think that's also helpful when we think about mentorship. Someone who can recognize our whole parts and the ways in which we show up. So I'll definitely have to thank mentors who recognize that we're not just students, right? We're mothers, for example. Your other mothers, your sisters, your all these things that inform the ways in which you navigate the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Dr. B. She was also a bright light for me and a mentor during my journey and still is. But just like, when we think about people who we choose, so that's one of the reasons that I have to, even if the person doesn't know they're mentoring me in my mind, like Dr. Kimberly Moffitt, like if she comes into a room, I fangirl out on the inside. I'm like, that's my mentor. She's such a superstar to me, but I wouldn't, I don't have that relationship where I'm like contacting her and asking her stuff. And I feel like I don't need it. I'm like, what she does, I'm like watching her and getting guidance just by what she does.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh,
There's sorry.
okay.
There's a Black woman, and I can't remember her name on Twitter, but she was a chair of a department, and watching her journey and watching what she's done as a chair and knowing personally one of my close friends who's a chair of a department, and as Black women what they've had to battle in terms of being department chairs. And so seeing this person I've never met on Twitter, but seeing her journey, seeing her, speak her truth and stand in that, and then, hearing personally about my friend's journey, I'm just like, damn, Black department chairs. And that's not even something that, well, it's going to be an area of research I'm interested in studying. But like you said, in terms of someone who you don't necessarily, Dr. Moffitt, but someone you don't know, but modeling the way and seeing that work and speaking her truth in terms of all of that, I was like, right on. So I follow her, I retweet her. I'm just like, great. She's not going to be chair after 4 years. She's stepping down from that role. But just seeing what she went through, watching her stories, representation matters. Because if I'm going to be a Black department chair one day, then it's like, okay, here are some examples. Here are stories that are out there. Representation is so important. Although it's making me think I don't want to ever do it. I'm just saying. But seeing and hearing the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing about having mentors that were taking me another way that I didn't want to go. I've had the experience where somebody was taking me under their wing, and we talk about perfectionism before, and I think when I show up as a perfectionist or a hard worker, there are certain women who are also who've made that kind of like their life's thing, and they want to take me under their wing and keep me going in that direction. And I need somebody who's not going to let me be a perfectionist. Dr. Adia Garrett, she's when I was an undergrad, she was the only Black woman faculty member I had, and she told me, like, even before grad school, she was like, "You're going to have to let this perfectionist thing go." And I didn't even believe I was a perfectionist at the time, but different places I've worked where a woman in charge sees me, sees I work hard, and she wants me to stay late with her because at the time I wasn't married and didn't have any children, but I still wanted a social life. I wanted to date, and she's making her job her whole life. She's not dating, she's not doing anything. She's sitting at work listening to music 8 o'clock at night. Like, I ain't got the time. So that's, when certain mentors show up, I think it's important to take what we can from them, but I can't just be this on the treadmill with you, and having all these other interests. I have to pick my own mentors who are on the path, or, many, because I have many things that I like to do.
Okay. Now that would be an interesting topic as well. Dating while Black woman getting a PhD. That has been a journey too.
Are we going to do that? Are we going to do that?
Come on, y'all know that was a journey. That was a journey. Well, I say was, like, some of us still aren't in it. It was a journey for me. So.
Definitely a journey.
All right, back to the topic.
Are there any final words from us before we get into affirmations?
I do like the point that y'all brought up, the importance of having role models, and also to be cognizant of what you're getting from your role models. So when I think about role modeling, for example, I also think about Dr. Claudia Galindo. For me, she role modeled the importance of doing solidarity within different spaces. So she's a Latinx scholar and who looks at education. But it was important to have her as a professor and also a mentor because she talked about the importance of mental health, right? So the one-on-one check-ins that she had with her students was so like a catalyst for me to recognize, like, your mental health is going to be impacted as you're doing your PhD, and you should have tools and resources and therapy, whatever you need in order to get through this, because many of us don't make it, not because, intellectually we can't, it's because of our mental health, right? I do think when we think about our mentors, to recognize that, or to honor those who recognize that mental health is important, and also us as educators to also bear that in mind when we are dealing with students, that their mental health, like, they show up, but you can't necessarily compartmentalize everything, right? Some days you show up, and some days you have to call them quote unquote Black, right? So, and those times, especially within the last 5 years, like, sometimes I had to call them Black, right? And to have mentors that understood that, who weren't Black, was really helpful. So I would say that's really imperative when we think about multiple mentors who do and don't look like. What are they role modeling? What are we taking in? What are we leaving behind? How are we developing our own mentorship models and sister circle in models? That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I definitely want to give Dr. G a shout out as well, especially in terms of when you talk about compartmentalize, like, from somebody who can compartmentalize and want to put everything in its box and be like, bury this, to have, Dr. G and others to be like, but wait, how is the rest of your life? I was like, but we were talking about this journey. Or to feel like if you've fallen down within the program and you just think that's the end of the world, and be like, it's a class. And not saying that I've ever failed a class, but just in terms of not meeting my own standards. And it's just like, you do know you're a mother. You do know you hadn't been to school in how many years, and you're coming back to this. So think about all that you're balancing. And I'm just like, no, I'm supposed to get this and that and everything. And Dr. G is just like, yeah, I want you to just sit down and think about what we're saying. A delay is not a no, and like, really think about all the things that you've been accomplishing within the program as well. So having mentors who make you check yourself when you think you should be somewhere, like wherever you think you should be, and be like, I want you to look at yourself holistically and really think about your path. And I'm like, okay. So that's important too, when people who are mothers and scholars and things of that nature can check you as well and be like, you're not a superwoman. Sometimes you do need to sit down.
Yes. And I also got to big up Denise Johnson from Culture Works in Baltimore. She's been a good mentor, even, whether it's private conversations and she probably doesn't even know she's my mentor, but she is. But just different times where she had to tell me certain things, and I'm like, okay. So, yeah, people who aren't academic but can absolutely mentor women who fall into an academic category.
Yeah. And I think too, because I think of someone who is around my age who doesn't know that they've been like a sister scholar. Before I even found Sister Scholar, I was in a predominantly white environment and I saw this Black woman and I was like, oh, you got your PhD. And she was a community partner at the time. I was like, let's sit down and chat. And then chat turned into, what was your research on? It turned into, how did you do your program? Where did you do this? What was your faculty walk like? And so she being an introvert, and I'm pretty much an introvert too, but again, when you see someone who's done that walk at PWIs, you're just like, okay, I need to sit down and talk to you. But I'm so thankful to Black women who see that hunger and that thirst, and other women of color with just mentors who see that thirst and hunger, like, oh, look, they really trying to get this, and take that time, because time is a sacrifice with so much going on in life, for them to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to talk to you about this, I'm going to talk to you about that, and to take that time and just sit with you because you're hungry. You're like, all right, I'm going to do all this. And it's like, wait, are you really? I've done this before. Let me help you, So I am very thankful for the different people who've poured and taken that time. That is so important because time is such a blessing.
Yeah, one of my mentors said that when we think about Black women, time is our currency. So if you're asking a Black woman to do something for you, you have to recognize that time is a currency, because we do have all of these multiple roles, but not that, but also compounded expectations that take more time from us. So I would say to also recognize that, and to give also our mentors grace, because they're human as well. So like you said, Dr. 99, some of them, it didn't work out, and that's okay, right? To not really hold that against them. So in the past, like, for example, I did have one faculty member who didn't show up, even though they said they would show up, right? So learning to not take that personally. And Dr. Lauren Henderson helped me to recognize that the way a mentor shows up for you is also a reflection of how they were mentored. So if they were not mentored in a holistic approach, in a mothering approach, or in a sister approach, then you shouldn't necessarily have the expectation for them to show up in the same ways that you would show up, right? So not, holding grudges, or having these expectations still over someone when they clearly, have showed you what expectations that they can meet. So I would say also to bear that in mind as you are developing these mentorship, like where can your mentor meet you at, and to be grateful for that as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, now it's time for affirmations. Who's up first for the affirmations?
Okay. I have mine pulled up so I can start.
Okay.
So I was listening to India Ari talk about her short film for her new song. So if you're India Ari fan, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And so someone asked her about defining a sacred space. And she defined a sacred place as a place where you go inward in your heart, where you cannot be disturbed, or where you go to calm your disturbances. And I would definitely say this relates to our sister circles, because we do have this space in which I would say that we intentionally protect, because we recognize that oftentimes Black women, we do not feel protected in dominant spaces. So when we do have opportunities for us to have community and be together, that we protect these spaces and that we hold it sacred. So that is an affirmation that I want to share with our family.
All right. Dr. Lyrical Tay?
So what's interesting is I had a quote from Fannie Lou Hamer, but it turns out it wasn't the whole quote. And the whole quote gives me chills, but it says, Sometimes it seems like to tell the truth today is to run the risk of being killed. But if I fall, I'll fall 5 feet 4 inches forward in the fight for freedom. I'm not backing off. And that's like, woo, that's a powerful quote given everything going on. So that is one of the quotes I admire. And the part I think about was when I think about falling or failing, and if we the term fail forward, so I'm going to fall forward and learn from those lessons, but keep moving in terms of progress.
Amen. All right. Well, my quote is from the Girl Track discussion with Angela Davis and Nikki Giovanni. And this is a quote from Angela Davis. We generate courage and we generate strength and power by coming together. Cultivate community. Always try to think of yourself as a part of a larger community and not as a single individual. And I think that really resonates in terms of sister scholars and all the journeys that we have to go on, Black women of different professions, and as they get their degrees or diplomas of any kind, cultivating a community and not thinking of themselves as an individual.
Yes.
So, Dr. Cupid, do you want to take us to What's Your Question, fam?
All right. So for What's Your Question, fam, we have a question from my friend Amy, who is a Baltimore artist from Okinawa. And she asks, the need issue you brought up with students feeling that they couldn't approach their mentor due to the mentoring tax is definitely a big issue. And there's a need to create dedicated time. How do you think mentors balance the need-based approach among students? And you can definitely relate that to other professions as well. So if you're a healthcare profession and you have people coming in within your residency, how do you balance mentoring your mentees? So how would you say, based upon your experiences as educators, as artists, how would you say you balance your mentees?
I think I definitely, based on need, sometimes if I see something where I learned a lesson, now that I'm a professor, there are some women, not even just women, I think I kind of put it out there, like depending on the feedback that I give for their papers. So my classes are more writing intensive, or at least even if it's not intense, it gives me the opportunity to look at how they analyze different things, look at how they write, and I might tell them different things like, you're in college now, you need to do this as a professional, or if you're giving a presentation, I have to, just different other things that I think a professor should do. And based on who's taking the feedback and the follow-up questions they ask, then I say, okay, this person is kind of looking for a mentor. And sometimes, depending on the questions they ask, usually questions that they ask, but then I mentor a family member who's an up and coming filmmaker, and we're kind of going through this journey together. But he's 20, and just I think more about what we have in common and what I feel like I can offer. But then especially if it's a young Black woman, some things I might offer just to let them know that they are not alone and that there is a community that they can cultivate.
Right on.
What would you say, Dr. Larry Conte?
I said right on.
You have a response to the question?
In terms of the need-based approach, as Dr. Mahdi said, or Dr. 99, when we're thinking about the mentorship, when we're thinking about our mentors and things of that nature, the authentic relationships allow you to have the need-based approach, because those are the ones who get to know you and get to understand all that you're balancing. So for me, it's often a burden, not for me personally, but I know in terms of the sacrifice that some of our mentors have made to go the extra mile, to go, when we're tapping on them, can you do this recommendation? Can you do that? That it can be a bit taxing with everything else that they have going on. But the ones that are authentic and not appointed, unless the appointed becomes authentic, then it's easier to do a needs-based approach because they really know you. It's harder to do it when it's more formulaic. So.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to add on in regards to them knowing you is also you knowing your mentors. So I would say when I think about my doctoral journey, it was also, taking some investment in their personal lives. So for example, Dr. Michelle Scott was one of the readers for my dissertation, and it was knowing that, hey, like she's currently working on a book right now. So if I want her to be my reader, I need to turn this document around by this date, right? So it's also investment and the reciprocity within these mentor relationships, because I would argue, just as we're learning a lot from our mentors too can learn from us, right? So whether or not that just sharing an article to say, hey, I recognize that this is an important topic for you, or you're researching this, you should check this out. So just having that ongoing relationship in which the mentee also is investing in their mentors in whatever capacity they can. And I think when we think about our mentors too, who have intentionally pointed us to other Black women students. So to say, hey, like you should go talk to Dr. Larry Cote and Dr. 99 because they're doing this. They already have a writers group. So thinking about that and how some of our mentors have helped to cultivate our sister circles.
Absolutely.
In which they balance their mentees, because there isn't enough of them, right? So, and I think about the work of Dr. Angela Neal Barnett, who stated like a sister circle is a support group built upon that fictive kin networks that we have amongst each other, right? So I think when we think about balancing and a need-based approach is recognizing sometimes that we do have to send our mentees to other spaces so they get what they need. So I think that's how my mentors have balanced me.
Absolutely.
My needs and having other mentees.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in terms of faculty fostering the sister circle relationship with us, I can so high five that as well, in terms of being directed to Black women who've completed the program, who are further along in the program, or who have similar stories. And it's like, yeah, go talk to them too, because it helps, with, as you say, Dr. Cupid, the lifting as we climb, you're right, because then you have that network, right? Absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Sister Scholars. And thank you to our audience for exhaling with us. Please join the conversation on social media and share with your friends. This week's audience question is, how do you maintain a healthy sister circle or support group? And use the hashtag Sista Docs Exhale and follow us at Sista Docs Exhale on Twitter. But you can also find us on Facebook and comment on the YouTube video. So until next time, we wish you, Sista Docs, love, light, and insight. Thank you. Peace. Okay, I'm gonna figure out how to